Just before the end of my shift, the last patient I see is my wife, Tracy Montgomery. Her prenatal test report clearly states that she is 3 weeks pregnant. She is the mother, and the father is her lover of 5 years, Max Lockwood. Calmly, I slide the report across the desk and say softly, "Congratulations. You finally got what you wanted." Tracy pauses for a moment before frowning hard. "That's it? Are you just congratulating me? Don't you have anything else to say?" I stare at the piece of paper and at the child who isn't mine. I initially think I would react the way I always do, which entails throwing away my pride and causing a huge scene in front of her. But in the end, I don't even have the strength for that anymore. Her fingertips brush gently across her stomach as she says, "I've had my fun over the years. Once the baby is born, I'll settle down." Hearing those words, I lift my head and meet her eyes. I say evenly, "Tracy, our contract has expired." Ethan's POV. My words, neither harsh nor gentle, shattered the silence in the office. Tracy Montgomery was still basking in the joy of her pregnancy with her lover's child when she looked up and frowned. "What contract? Ethan, are you trying to start something again?" She had clearly forgotten. The moment that realization hit me, my fingers slowly tightened around the edge of the desk. Even breathing hurt. "I'm not starting anything," I said. "But you're right. I won't have a say in your life anymore. Whether you come back to this family or not doesn't matter to me." As soon as I finished speaking, Tracy rubbed her temples. She spread her hands and leaned back in her chair, impatience written all over her face. "This is literally how our circle works. Keeping a lover on the side is the norm. I don't see Ms. Lawson or Ms. Stone's husbands acting as jealous and petty as you do. It's not like I needed your money to support myself anyway. If you had even a fraction of Max's sensibility, you wouldn't be acting so petulant." I had heard those words more than 1,000 times over the past 5 years. 5 years ago, Tracy had pursued me so openly that everyone in town knew about it. Because of my mother's illness, I turned her down again and again. Then, when Mom was on her deathbed, Tracy offered me $700,000 in exchange for signing a prenuptial agreement. The first supply of a life-saving specialty drug on the market went straight to Mom. Even so, less than a year after Tracy and I got married, Mom passed away. Then Tracy cheated on me with Max. I caught them in our own home. The wedding decorations hadn't even been fully taken down. There were fresh handprints smeared across our wedding photo, along with countless other traces they hadn't bothered to hide. That day, I smashed everything in the house that could be smashed. She thought I was boring and immature. After all the fighting, all I got from her was a stab to the heart. "Know your place, Ethan. Don't forget who saved your mother's life," she had said. I let out a sigh. Just as I opened my mouth to explain myself, my office door was pushed open. My son, Harry Lowe, came running in, holding Max Lockwood's hand. "Mommy," he exclaimed. When he saw me, the excitement on his face faded. "Oh, Daddy's here too." I reached out, wanting to pat his head, but he avoided my touch with obvious disdain. My hand froze in midair before I slowly pulled it back. "Hey Tracy, how did the checkup go?" Max asked, gently resting a hand over Tracy's belly. A smile bloomed across her face, easing the irritation I had caused her earlier. "Good. The baby's healthy." I said nothing, my gaze fixed on her face. Now that I thought about it, she had never smiled at me like that during all these years of our marriage. Ironically, she had been the one who relentlessly pursued me, only to cast me aside as though she had never loved me. "Dr. Lowe, you're Tracy's OBGYN, huh? What a coincidence." "That instantly puts my mind at ease," Max said. He finally noticed me standing there. A knowing smile tugged at his lips. When he spoke, he hooked a finger around Tracy's hand, making one intimate gesture after another. Harry cheered. "Mommy and Mr. Lockwood are having a baby? Does that mean I'm finally getting a little sister?" Max pinched Harry's cheek affectionately. "Well, it could be a little brother, too." The scene before me was so painfully bright that it seared my eyes. I quickly looked away. Ever since Max came into our lives, my relationship with Harry had soured. I had asked him why, but he had only looked at me with disgust. "All my friends have more than one daddy. What's wrong with me having another one? Besides, Mr. Lockwood buys me everything I want. All you ever do is nag me and scold me. You're so annoying." I took a deep breath and forced myself back to the present. By then, Tracy had already moved past our unpleasant conversation earlier. Before leaving, she even spoke to me in a cheerful tone. "Come home early." Then the door closed behind them. I stared at the black and white photo of Mom sitting on my desk. Tears welled up, blurring my vision. Little did I know, I had lost my last chance at a real family 5 years ago. Ethan's POV. By the time I got home from work, it was dark outside. The front door hadn't been fully closed. The entryway and living room were in disarray. Our family portrait had been thrown on the floor. Harry was crouched over it with a marker, doodling all over the picture. With a pair of scissors, he cut out the part where I was. As he worked, he muttered to himself, "I wish this were Mr. Lockwood instead." In the past, I would have tried to teach him right from wrong. Now I simply ignored him and walked past. Tracy was sitting on the couch. When she heard me come in, she looked up, displeasure evident on her face. What took you so long? Dinner still isn't ready. Harry's starving. My steps slowed as I looked at them. For 5 years, no matter how late I worked or how exhausted I was, I had to come home and cook for them, clean the house, and do the laundry. There are leftovers in the fridge from yesterday. Just put it in the microwave for 3 minutes, I said, then smiled sarcastically. Don't tell me you can't even manage that. Tracy's eyes widened in disbelief. She parted her lips and shot to her feet. Hey, cook for me, Daddy, Harry ordered loudly, barking instructions as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Exhaustion engulfed me. I didn't want to look at either of them. The moment I pushed open the master bedroom door, my face turned pale. The documents I had stored inside had been cut into pieces. The vase, the lamp, and the picture frames had all been smashed. My steps turned frantic as I rushed to the bedside. The box that always sat on my nightstand had been knocked to the floor. Fragments of a vintage pocket watch lay scattered everywhere. It was the last thing Mom had left behind in this world. I had always kept it safely tucked away in that box, protecting it like a treasure. I spun around abruptly, and sure enough, Harry was leaning against the doorway, looking contemptuous. Did you do all this? I questioned him. He curled his lips. Serves you right. You're always picking on Mr. Lockwood, and you wouldn't even cook dinner for me. A loud buzzing filled my head as I stared at Harry with bloodshot eyes. Without hesitation, I raised my hand and slapped him hard, snapping his head to the side. My palm stung, but it was nothing compared to the pain in my heart. This was the child I had held in my arms from the day he was born, the child whose first word had been Dada. Now he felt like a stranger. Harry clutched his cheek, staring at me in shock and fear. The next second, his cries brought Tracy rushing over. Her expression darkened as she pulled him into her arms. How could you lay a hand on him, Ethan? You've really got some nerve. I ignored her shouting. Like someone who had lost his soul, I crouched on the floor and picked up the fragments of the pocket watch one by one. It's just a watch, Tracy said impatiently. Do you really have to make such a big deal out of it? If you want, I'll just buy you a better one later. A sharp edge sliced my finger, splattering drops of blood onto the floor. I remembered Mom pressing that pocket watch into my hand while she was still alive. Tracy is a good woman, Ethan. After I'm gone, give this to her. It's a valuable antique, and it's been with me ever since I got married. I closed my eyes for a moment before standing up and looking at Tracy. Is money your answer to everything? She seemed startled by the look in my eyes and froze in place. The words of condemnation she had been about to unleash got stuck in her throat. Her lips quivered, yet not a word slipped out. Harry cried even harder, flailing and hitting me with his fists and feet. I don't want you as my daddy anymore. I want Mr. Lockwood. Mommy, bring me to Mr. Lockwood. His sobbing made my temples throb. At last, Tracy pulled herself together and scooped Harry into her arms, her face grim. Ethan, I don't care what kind of tantrum you're throwing. We'll settle this later. And when you finally come to your senses and apologize, that's when I'll bring our son back. Ethan's POV. I sat alone in the living room the entire night. Only when dawn broke did I finally get up and open the drawer. Inside was the prenuptial agreement, its pages yellowed with age. Tracy's signature was still there, bold and unmistakable. My fingers brushed over the bottom corner of the document. The date on it was set for next month. In the days that followed, neither Tracy nor Harry came home. I had more than 10 surgeries lined up back to back. I didn't want to return to that barren house anyway, so I rented a place and stayed there. I contacted a divorce attorney and asked him to draw up the papers. Honestly, I should have done this right after Mom passed away. Alas, I had been too attached to the idea of a family, to Tracy. Letting go, it turned out, wasn't nearly as hard as I'd once thought it would be. I believed everything would proceed smoothly from there. Then a month later, things took a turn. I was the speaker at an academic lecture. The hall was so quiet one could hear a pin drop. Suddenly, the doors were violently shoved open. Max stormed in with red-rimmed eyes, shoving past the security guards trying to stop him. He rushed onto the stage and grabbed me by the collar. If you're angry, take it out on me like a man. Why did you go after Tracy's baby? His furious voice boomed through my microphone and spread across the hall. Whispers broke out among the audience. Cameras flashed as television crews kept snapping photos of me. My face drained of color. I had barely made sense of the situation when Max grabbed my throat and roared. You inserted yourself into our relationship, and I let it slide. But that was my baby. How could you do this? Because of you, Tracy lost our baby. He broke down crying, then suddenly dropped to his knees before me. Please, I'm begging you, let Tracy go. Stop holding on to her and destroying our family. My mind went blank as I stared at his theatrics, confused. Wait, so Dr. Lowe is a homewrecker? Someone in the crowd muttered, and the hall erupted. I instantly snapped my head up to deny it. No, I'm Tracy Montgomery's legal husband. Unfortunately, the chaos in the room swallowed my voice. People surged forward. One hurled a spare microphone at me. Others pointed and shouted obscenities. Even my colleagues looked at me with disgust. Amid the chaos, Tracy finally arrived. She walked over and pulled Max to his feet, soothing him. "Hey, pull yourself together. It's just a misunderstanding." Someone in the crowd recognized her and immediately started seeking confirmation. "Is that Ms. Montgomery? The CEO of Montgomery Group? No way. Dr. Lowe got himself involved with a billionaire CEO?" "Ms. Montgomery, Ethan Lowe just claimed he's your legal husband. Is that true?" Tracy, who had been out of the loop, finally understood what was happening. She snapped her head up at me. I clenched my fists and stared at her, but she avoided my gaze almost immediately. "I have a baby with Max," she said evenly. "Dr. Lowe is just my OBGYN. Something inside me snapped. Tracy wouldn't look at me. She grabbed Max's hand and dragged him out of the hall, abandoning me to weather the full storm of hostility and humiliation on my own. Naturally, the lecture was ruined. The dean said I had brought shame to the hospital and suspended me from my position. Even my training slot abroad was reassigned to someone else. In 5 years, I had lost my mother, my family, and now my career. Because of Tracy, I was left with nothing. Ethan's POV. After the ordeal, Tracy reached out to me by texts. "What happened was my fault. Max and I had an argument, and I told him out of spite that I had terminated the pregnancy. I didn't expect him to actually believe it and cause you trouble. I'm so sorry. Once the baby is born, I'll set the record straight with the media. Just bear with it for now." Along with the messages came a large bank transfer. My grip tightened around the phone until my knuckles turned white. Because of their petty fight, I had lost my reputation and my career. That scene kept replaying in my mind, and I couldn't get over it. But in the end, I bent forward, and whatever fight I had left drained right out of me. At the end of the day, Tracy didn't love me anymore. Max would always be her priority. If that were the case, I would step aside and give them what they wanted. I had already booked my flight. All the paperwork was done. The only thing left to do was collecting the prenuptial agreement and the fragments of Mom's pocket watch from that house. When I got there, the house was packed with people, particularly kids about Harry's age. I glanced at the decorations on the wall, and only then did I remember it was Harry's birthday. In the past, I would have never forgotten such an important day. Instead, I would have started preparing his gift 2 weeks in advance, though I had long suspected those presents ended up in the trash the moment I gave them. I kept my head down and tried to make myself invisible, only planning to grab what I needed and leave. To my surprise, Harry's eyes lit up the moment he saw me. "Daddy." If I wasn't mistaken, I hadn't seen him since the incident at the house. Same as before, I paid no heed to him and simply walked right past. A sharp-eyed kid suddenly pointed at me and said, "Hey, isn't that guy from TV? My mom said he's a homewrecker. What's he doing here?" "Ethan Lowe? He actually has the nerve to show up at their house," a concerned parent muttered. Harry's face was washed with panic. Faced with his silence, his friends started teasing him. "Wait a minute. He's not actually your dad, is he? Are you the child of a homewrecker?" "I'm not," Harry screamed, his neck stiff with defiance, his face burning red. Tracy frowned and made her way over, grabbing my arm and whispering, "What on earth are you doing here? Don't you know it's his birthday? Every media outlet was reporting on you. Do you have no shame? We still have to live our lives." I calmly pulled my arm free without saying a word. After I got what I came for, I turned to leave. As soon as I stepped out of the master bedroom, a plate of sliced cake flew straight at me. It smashed hard into my face, and the fruit knife resting on the plate cut into my palm as well. Pain shot through me, and my face turned pale. When I looked up, Harry was standing there, his face flushed, chest heaving violently. "You homewrecker. Why are you ruining my family? It's my birthday today. Get out." The kids who had been mocking him fell silent for a second. Then, as if amused, they started clapping and cheering. I clenched my bleeding palm, my body trembling from rage. I knew Harry hated me, but I had never imagined he would go this far. Tracy quickly came up to me, trying to grab my hand and check my injury. I shoved her away. "You're right," I said hoarsely. "I'm not your husband. He's not my son. And this is definitely not my home." The 5-year agreement was up. Whether it was Harry's custody or Tracy's commitment, I didn't want either of them anymore. The chilly night air hit my face the moment I stepped out of the villa gates. Blood still trickled from the palm of my hand where the fruit knife had cut into my skin, mixing with the smears of frosting on my coat. I didn't wipe it off. I simply walked down the quiet suburban road, the noise of Harry's birthday party fading into the distance behind me. I stopped at a 24-hour urgent care clinic 3 blocks away. The young nurse on duty gasped when she saw my hand. "Sir, that's a deep laceration." "What happened?" she asked, pulling out sterile gauze and antiseptic. "A glass plate broke," I said quietly, staring at the white wall. "You're lucky it didn't sever the tendon," she murmured, carefully cleaning the wound. "You're a doctor yourself, aren't you? I can tell by how still you're." holding your arm. I gave a faint, humorless smile. I used to be. After she bandaged my hand, I walked to a nearby coffee shop that stayed open until midnight. I pulled out my phone and dialed my lawyer, Mr. Vance. He picked up on the second ring. Ethan? Is everything ready? Mr. Vance asked. Yes, I said. The 5-year contract expired 3 days ago. I've collected my mother's watch fragments and the original prenuptial agreement. I want you to deliver the final termination notice and the signed divorce papers to Tracy's office tomorrow morning. Mr. Vance hesitated on the line. Ethan, you know that under the terms of the prenuptial agreement Tracy drafted 5 years ago, if the contract ends without a formal renewal, you are entitled to a spousal settlement of $2 million plus 10% of the appreciation on Montgomery Group's residential properties. I don't want a single cent of her money, I replied, my voice steady and clear. Waive all financial claims, waive alimony, and leave Harry's custody entirely to her. Are you sure? Mr. Vance sounded stunned. You spent 5 years in that marriage. You gave up your career advancement for her. I didn't give it up for her. I gave it up because I thought I was protecting a family, I said softly, looking out the window at the passing streetlights. Now, I realized there was never a family to protect. Just draft the papers clean. Understood. I'll have everything filed by 9 a.m. tomorrow. After hanging up, I took a taxi to the Master Horologist shop downtown, a tiny, antique store owned by an elderly craftsman who specialized in restoring rare pocket watches. I laid the velvet pouch containing the shattered fragments of my mother's watch on his counter. The old craftsman put on his jeweler's loupe and carefully examined the broken gears, the cracked enamel dial, and the bent gold casing. It's severely damaged, he sighed, looking up at me over his glasses. The balance spring is snapped, and 2 of the ruby bearings are crushed. Who did this? My son, I said simply. The old man looked at me for a long second, noticing the bandage on my hand and the quiet exhaustion in my eyes. He didn't ask any more questions. It will take time, he said gently. Maybe 6 months. I'll have to source original parts from Europe to rebuild the movement. Take as long as you need, I said, placing a deposit on the counter. I'm moving abroad tomorrow. Here is my new international email address. When it's finished, ship it to the Medical Research Foundation in Geneva. I'll take good care of it, son. I walked out of the shop into the damp midnight mist. My flight was scheduled for 3 a.m. I took my phone out of my pocket, pulled out the SIM card that contained 5 years of Tracy's demands, Max's taunts, and Harry's cold dismissals and dropped it into a roadside storm drain. Then I boarded the airport shuttle, never looking back. At 9:30 the next morning, Tracy Montgomery arrived at the headquarters of Montgomery Group, her face dark with irritation. She hadn't slept well. After Ethan walked out of the birthday party, Harry had thrown a massive tantrum because the party was ruined. To make matters worse, Max had stayed overnight at the villa, constantly dropping hints about moving in permanently now that Ethan was finally out of the way. For some reason, the sight of Max hanging his clothes in the master closet had made Tracy's stomach churn. Ms. Montgomery, her senior secretary, rushed forward as soon as Tracy stepped out of the executive elevator. There's a legal representative waiting in your office. He says he's representing Dr. Ethan Lowe. Tracy's eyebrows rose, a cold, sneering smile touching her lips. A lawyer? He's hiring a lawyer now? He probably wants to demand a settlement after throwing that embarrassing scene yesterday. She pushed open her office door and stepped inside. Mr. Vance stood up from the leather sofa, placing a neat black leather binder on her desk. Ms. Montgomery, Mr. Vance said professionally, I am here on behalf of my client, Dr. Ethan Lowe. As of midnight 3 days ago, the 5-year prenuptial cohabitation agreement signed between you and Dr. Lowe has reached its official expiration date. Tracy sat down behind her massive executive desk, leaning back with a dismissive wave of her hand. Tell Ethan to stop playing these transparent games. If he wants money for his hand, tell him to send me the hospital bill. He doesn't need to hire a lawyer to threaten me with a contract expiration. Dr. Lowe is not asking for money, Ms. Montgomery, Mr. Vance said calmly. Opened the binder and turned it toward her. In fact, my client has signed a complete waiver of all financial entitlements. Tracy froze. Her hand stopped midway to her coffee cup. What did you say? Under Section 12 of your original agreement, Dr. Lowe was entitled to a multi-million-dollar spousal payout upon non-renewal, Mr. Vance explained, pointing to the signed legal document. He has formally waived every single penny. He has also signed a complete relinquishment of parental rights and custody regarding Harry Lowe. Tracy stared at the bold, dark signature at the bottom of the page. Ethan Lowe. The stroke was smooth, decisive, and entirely without hesitation. Where is he? Tracy snapped, her voice suddenly rising, an unfamiliar prickle of anxiety knotting in her chest. Where is he hiding? Is he staying at that cheap rented apartment near the hospital? Dr. Lowe has cleared out his rental unit, Mr. Vance replied evenly. He has terminated his local bank accounts, surrendered his medical license in this district, and left the country. He has cut all legal and personal ties with you. Left the country? Tracy shot out of her chair, her face turning pale. That's impossible. His mother's grave is here. His son is here. His mother passed away 4 years ago, Ms. Montgomery, Mr. Vance reminded her coldly. And as for his son, I believe your son made it abundantly clear yesterday that he prefers Mr. Lockwood as his father. Mr. Vance closed his briefcase, gave a polite nod, and walked out of the office. Tracy stood alone behind her massive desk, staring at the white sheets of paper. The office was deathly quiet. For 5 years, Ethan had always been there. Whenever she called, no matter how late he answered. Whenever she brought Max around to test his patience, Ethan stayed, swallowed his pride, and cooked dinner for her. She had been utterly convinced that Ethan was chained to her by gratitude, by his mother's debt, and by his soft, weak nature. She pulled out her phone and dialed Ethan's number. The number you have dialed is no longer in service. She dialed again. Same automated voice. She called the hospital where Ethan worked. The department secretary answered, her tone cold and distant. Ms. Montgomery? Dr. Lowe resigned 3 days ago, following the public defamation incident involving Mr. Lockwood. His personnel file has been officially closed. Tracy dropped her phone onto the desk. For the first time in 5 years, a cold, suffocating wave of panic washed over her. Ethan hadn't left in a huff. He hadn't left to throw a tantrum. He had waited patiently for the exact day his contract expired, gathered his things, and erased himself from her life completely. 2 weeks passed. Max Lockwood officially moved into the Montgomery villa. He brought 6 oversized trunks, filled the garage with 2 new sports cars charged to Tracy's corporate account, and began attending high society galas as the prospective male master of the Montgomery estate. However, life inside the villa was rapidly deteriorating. Where's my breakfast? Harry screamed from the dining table, slamming his fork onto the placemat. This porridge is cold, and the eggs are burnt. Max, wearing a silk robe, walked out of the kitchen with an annoyed expression. Harry stopped yelling. The housekeeper made it. Just eat it. I don't want the housekeeper's porridge, Harry cried, kicking the leg of the chair. I want the pumpkin porridge Daddy makes. The one with the little smiley face made of cinnamon. Your daddy is gone, Max snapped, losing his patience. I'm the one buying you Transformers and video games now. Stop whining about that useless doctor. You're not my daddy, Harry shrieked, throwing his bowl of porridge straight at Max's silk robe. You're mean. You don't know how to bandage my knees when I fall. You don't stay up with me when I have a fever. I hate you. The hot porridge splattered across Max's chest. Max's face turned dark, and he instinctively lifted his hand to shove the 8-year-old boy back. What are you doing? Tracy's sharp voice echoed from the stairs. She rushed down, pulling Harry behind her, staring at Max with cold, furious eyes. Did you just try to lay a hand on my son? Tracy, he threw hot food at me, Max argued, trying to mask his anger. He's completely out of control. Ethan spoiled him into a brat. Ethan never raised a hand against Harry except the day Harry destroyed his mother's antique watch. Tracy yelled back, her eyes red. Mentioning the watch made her heart ache with a sudden, sharp pang. Over the past 2 weeks, she had searched the entire house for the fragments of that pocket watch, hoping to hire someone to fix it as an excuse to reach out to Ethan. But Ethan had taken every single piece with him. Just as the argument reached its peak, Tracy's phone rang frantically. It was her vice president of corporate communications. Ms. Montgomery, you need to look at the news right now, the secretary gasped. In panic. The medical board and the press have released the full investigation report regarding the incident at the university lecture. Tracy's heart dropped. She quickly opened her laptop. The front page of every major news portal featured a massive red headline. Exclusive. Billionaire CEO's lover staged homewrecker scandal to destroy innocent OBGYN husband. Below the headline was a video clip leaked from the hospital's security system. 3 weeks ago. The video clearly showed Max standing outside the OBGYN clinic, smiling maliciously as he reviewed a fake medical report. It was followed by an audio recording of Max talking to a tabloid reporter in the hospital parking lot. Yeah, Ethan Lowe is her legal husband, but so what? Tracy gives me whatever I want. Once I make a scene at his lecture and ruin his reputation, he'll be forced to resign. Then the Montgomery family's assets will belong to my kid. The internet exploded. Comments flooded in by the tens of thousands. My God! Dr. Lowe was her legal husband all along. He saved her mother, spent 5 years taking care of her kid, and she let her lover publicly ruin his medical career? Look at this. Video of her son throwing a knife at Dr. Lowe at his birthday party. What kind of sociopaths are these people? Boycott Montgomery Group. Boycott their products. Within 2 hours, Montgomery Group's stock price plunged by 12%, triggering an automatic trading halt. Board members began calling Tracy's personal line every 30 seconds, demanding an emergency meeting to strip her of her executive powers. Tracy sat at the dining table, her face as white as paper, her hands trembling violently as she looked at Max. Max stared at the laptop screen, panic finally breaking through his arrogant facade. Tracy, listen to me. That recording is fake. Someone edited it. Get out, Tracy whispered, her voice dangerously quiet. Tracy, get out of my house, she screamed, picking up a heavy glass vase and shattering it at Max's feet. Get out. Max was dragged out of the villa by security guards that afternoon, his designer luggage tossed into the street after him. When he tried to push his way back in, Tracy's legal team served him with a restraining order and a lawsuit for corporate defamation and unauthorized use of company funds, demanding the return of the 2 sports cars and $4 million in cash he had coaxed out of Tracy over the past year. By evening, the house was silent again. Harry sat on the living room rug, surrounded by hundreds of expensive toys, but he wasn't playing with any of them. He held a small, crumpled drawing he had made in kindergarten, a drawing of Ethan holding his hand under a big yellow sun. Mommy, Harry whimpered, looking up at Tracy with tear-filled eyes. When is Daddy coming home? I'm hungry. My stomach hurts. Tracy knelt beside her son, pulling him into her arms, tears spilling down her cheeks. She felt a dull, thumping pain in her own abdomen. The stress of the past 2 weeks, combined with the corporate crisis and the explosive media scandal, was taking a severe physical toll on her. She pulled out her phone and called Ethan's mentor, Dr. Harrison, the former chief of surgery at the Central Hospital. Dr. Harrison, Tracy wept into the phone. Please, I know you know where Ethan is. Tell me where he went. Harry is sick, and he needs his father. Dr. Harrison let out a long, heavy sigh over the line. Ms. Montgomery, the old doctor said sternly. When Ethan came to see me 5 years ago to sign that prenuptial agreement to save his mother, do you know what he told me? Tracy choked on her sobs, unable to speak. He told me, Dr. Harrison, Tracy is a strong, ambitious woman. She saved my mother when I was helpless. I will spend the rest of my life making sure she comes home to a warm meal and a quiet house. Dr. Harrison's voice turned ice cold. For 5 years, he kept that promise. He bore your coldness, bore your lovers' taunts, and raised your son with every ounce of care he possessed. And how did you repay him? You let a fraud ruin his 20 years of medical training in front of the whole world. I was wrong. I know I was wrong. Tracy sobbed hysterically, gripping the phone tightly. I'll give him everything. I'll transfer half of Montgomery Group to his name. Just tell me where he is. Ethan doesn't want your money, Ms. Montgomery, Dr. Harrison said quietly. He never did. And as for where he is, even if I told you, it wouldn't matter. You destroyed the only man who ever loved you for who you were, not for your money. Click. The line went dead. That night, Tracy suffered severe abdominal cramping and was rushed to the hospital. Due to extreme emotional distress and physical exhaustion, she underwent an emergency procedure. The baby she was carrying, Max's baby, could not be saved. When she woke up in the cold, sterile hospital room the next morning, the space beside her bed was empty. There was no warm soup sitting on the nightstand, no gentle hand holding a warm towel to wipe her forehead, no soft voice reminding her to take her vitamins. There was only the quiet, rhythmic beep of the heart monitor, echoing in the vast hollow darkness of the room. 3 years later, Geneva, Switzerland. The International Medical Exhibition Center was lit up with brilliant white floodlights. Banners hanging from the high glass ceiling proclaimed the opening of the 30th Global Summit on Gynecological Surgery and Maternal Health. Over 2,000 top medical professionals, researchers, and journalists from around the world gathered in the main auditorium. Sitting in the third row of the balcony section was Tracy Montgomery. She looked significantly older than she had 3 years ago. Her tailored black suit hung loosely on her thin frame, her face pale, her eyes carrying a permanent qui fatigue. Beside her sat 11-year-old Harry, wearing a formal suit, holding a small velvet box tightly in his hands. Over the past 3 years, Montgomery Group had barely survived the massive PR scandal, stabilized only after Tracy stepped down as CEO and handed management to a professional board. She had spent millions hiring international private investigators to track Ethan's whereabouts, finally discovering 3 weeks ago that he had been appointed senior research director at the prestigious European Gynecological Institute in Geneva. She had dragged Harry on an 11-hour flight across the Atlantic just to stand in this auditorium today. "Mommy," Harry whispered, his voice trembling slightly. "Is Daddy really up there?" "Yes, baby," Tracy murmured, her eyes fixed on the stage, her heart beating frantically against her ribs. "He's up there." The house lights dimmed. The master of ceremonies stepped up to the central podium, his voice echoing in fluent English across the auditorium speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, it is our distinct honor to present this year's International Pioneer Award in Maternal Fetal Medicine to Director Ethan Lowe." The auditorium erupted into thunderous applause. From the side of the stage walked a tall, dignified man wearing an impeccably tailored navy suit. His dark hair was neatly styled, his wire-rimmed glasses catching the spotlight. His posture was confident, regal, and completely commanding. He looked healthy, radiant, and utterly transformed. Tracy's breath caught in her throat. Tears instantly filled her eyes. It was Ethan. He didn't look like the tired, quiet man who used to wear faded aprons in her kitchen, whose eyes were always shadowed by fatigue and quiet hurt. He stood at the center of the world stage, receiving the highest honor in his field, surrounded by global respect. Ethan stepped up to the microphone, delivering a brilliant, articulate, 10-minute speech on breakthrough minimally invasive fetal surgical techniques. His voice was smooth, confident, and filled with deep passion for his work. When he finished, the entire auditorium stood up, giving him a 3-minute standing ovation. "Daddy," Harry cried out from the balcony, trying to stand on his seat, his small voice swallowed by the roaring applause. "Daddy." After the ceremony ended, the attendees flooded into the grand glass foyer for the evening reception. Tracy grabbed Harry's hand and pushed her way through the crowd of international diplomats, hospital directors, and reporters, her eyes desperately searching for that familiar navy suit. She found him standing near the floor-to-ceiling glass windows overlooking Lake Geneva, holding a glass of sparkling water, conversing warmly with a group of senior European surgeons. "Ethan," Tracy called out, her voice cracking with pure emotion. Ethan paused. He slowly turned around. When his eyes landed on Tracy and Harry, there was no shock on his face. No anger. No viternis. His dark eyes behind his glasses remained as calm and still as a frozen lake. Tracy rushed forward, stopping 3 feet away from him, her body shaking as tears streamed down her face. "Ethan, I found you. God, I finally found you." Harry stepped forward, holding out the small velvet box with trembling hands. "Daddy, look. I saved my allowance for 3 years. I bought you a new pocket watch. It looks just like the one your mommy gave you." Ethan looked down at the velvet box, then looked up at the boy standing before him. He didn't reach out to take the box. He didn't reach out to pat Harry's head. He simply stood there, keeping a polite, respectful 3-foot distance, looking at them as if they were 2 strangers who had accidentally stopped him in an airport lobby. "Mr. Lowe?" A young Swiss assistant walked up beside Ethan, holding a leather folder. "The director of the World Health Organization is waiting for you in the executive lounge for the dinner meeting." "Thank you, Clara," Ethan said smoothly in flawless French. "Tell them I'll be there in 2 minutes." "Ethan, please," Tracy begged, taking a step closer, reaching out to grab his sleeve. "Just give us 5 minutes. Harry has missed you every single day for 3 years. He asks for you every night before he sleeps." Ethan stepped back discreetly, avoiding her touch with effortless grace. "Ms. Montgomery," Ethan said softly. His tone was polite, cultured, and utterly devoid of warmth. "Please refrain from making physical contact. It is inappropriate." The title, Ms. Montgomery, hit Tracy like a physical blow to her chest. "Ethan, don't call me that," she whimpered, tears spilling over her lashes. "I'm your wife. I know I made horrible mistakes. I kicked Max out 3 years ago. I sued him. I lost his baby. I've spent every single day regretting what I did to you." She dropped to her knees right there on the polished marble floor of the grand foyer, completely abandoning her pride, her status, and her dignity before dozens of international onlookers. "I love you, Ethan," she sobbed, clutching her chest. "I didn't realize it back then. I was stupid. I was arrogant. I thought you would always be there. But I love you. Please, come home with us. Let us be a family again." Harry dropped to his knees beside his mother, crying hysterically, holding up the velvet box. "Daddy, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I destroyed your watch. I'm sorry I threw the cake at you. I don't want Mr. Lockwood. I only want you, Daddy. Please, come home." The foyer fell quiet. A few international guests paused, looking at the weeping woman and child in confusion. Ethan stood still, looking down at the two people kneeling at his feet. He remembered the day his mother died in the hospital bed, holding his hand, telling him to be good to Tracy. He remembered the day he found Max's handprints on his wedding photo. He remembered the cold floor of his office when Max dragged him by his collar, and the sting of the knife cutting into his palm, while Harry screamed homewrecker at him. He felt no hatred now. He felt no desire for revenge. He simply felt nothing. Ms. Montgomery. Ethan spoke gently, his voice carrying cleanly through the quiet space. 5 years ago, you paid $700,000 for a prenuptial agreement. You bought my time, my domestic labor, and my silence. Tracy flinched violently. For 5 years, I fulfilled every single clause of that contract, Ethan continued smoothly, his eyes calm behind his glasses. I cooked your meals, cleaned your house, cared for your son, and bore your disrespect. When the contract expired 3 years ago, I left. He looked at Harry, his gaze gentle yet distant. Harry, Ethan said softly, you don't miss me. You miss the convenience of having someone who cooked your pumpkin porridge and bandaged your knees without asking for anything in return. But children must learn that words have weight, and actions have permanent consequences. Harry choked on his sobs, his small hands shaking so hard the velvet box slipped from his fingers, clattering onto the marble floor. Ethan didn't pick it up. He pulled a small velvet pouch from his inner jacket pocket and laid it quietly on the glass table beside Tracy. Inside the pouch was a beautifully restored vintage gold pocket watch, its balance spring replaced, its ruby bearings polished, its movement ticking with a steady, flawless rhythm. My mother's watch was fully restored 2 years ago by a master craftsman in Geneva, Ethan said quietly. It runs perfectly now. It doesn't need any new parts. He turned to his Swiss assistant, giving her a polite nod. Let's go, Clara. We shouldn't keep the director waiting. Yes, Director Lowe, the assistant smiled, opening the glass doors to the VIP elevator corridor. Ethan stepped into the elevator. As the polished silver doors slowly began to close, Tracy looked up through her tears, desperate for one final glance, one tiny flicker of emotion in his eyes. Ethan stood straight inside the elevator, his hands folded comfortably behind his back, looking out through the closing gap. His gaze was serene, his posture relaxed, his heart completely whole. Clack! The silver doors sealed shut, cutting off her weeping, cutting off her regret, and cutting off the past forever. Ethan turned toward the floor-to-ceiling glass window of the elevator as it rose toward the top floor, looking out at the sunlit peaks of the Swiss Alps, stretching endlessly against the blue sky. The weather outside was clear, bright, and boundless, and his life had finally begun.